Stop scrolling. Focus on your screen. You're standing in a corridor. 4 doors in front of you. Each one leads to a different form of power, a different strategy for domination, a different method of survival. Door 1. The Gilded Gate, massive, ornate, visible from everywhere. It announces your arrival. Door 2. The Hidden Passage, concealed behind tapestry, only visible to those who know where to look. Door 3. The Iron Fortress, reinforced, impenetrable, designed to withstand any assault. Door 4. The Open Archway, no door at all, just an open entrance that welcomes everyone while revealing nothing. Choose one door. Right now. Don't analyze which door is better. Don't calculate which choice makes you look smarter. Your instinct is revealing something about how you enter power, how you position yourself, how you control access. Comment your choice. 1, 2, 3, or 4. Do it immediately. Because what I'm about to decode will expose the strategic pattern you've been following your entire life without realizing it. In 1498, Niccolò Machiavelli was appointed second chancellor of the Republic of Florence. He was 30 years old, ambitious, unknown. His first diplomatic mission was to the court of France, negotiating with King Louis XIV. Machiavelli had no military power, no wealth, no hereditary status, but he had access, and he noticed something the French nobles missed. Every visitor to the king's court approached power through one of 4 entrances. Not literal entrances, strategic entrances. 4 different methods of gaining access to decision-makers. Some announced themselves loudly at the front gates, demanding recognition through titles and credentials. Some used side passages known only to inner circles, leveraging personal relationships and secret knowledge. Some waited at fortified entrances, building reputations so strong that power came to them instead of them seeking it. Some walked through open archways, appearing non-threatening, adaptable, always welcome because they seemed to want nothing. Machiavelli realized that your entrance strategy determines your power ceiling. Choose the wrong door, and you'll never access the throne room no matter how qualified you are. Choose the right door, and even emperors will grant you audience. He coded these 4 entrance archetypes into the prince, hidden in chapters about acquiring principalities, disguised as advice about military campaigns, buried in case studies about Italian city-states. Today, I'm revealing his door system. Comment your door choice now. Because once you understand which entrance you instinctively choose, you'll see why some rooms remain forever closed to you, and why others open effortlessly. Let me take you to Rome, year 1503. Pope Alexander VI had just died. The papacy was vacant. The College of Cardinals was preparing to elect a new pope. Giuliano della Rovere wanted the position desperately. He had wanted it for decades. He'd been passed over before when Rodrigo Borgia, Alexander VI, bribed his way to the papal throne. Now Giuliano had another chance, but he faced a problem. Cesare Borgia, the dead pope's son, still controlled Rome militarily. Cesare could influence the papal election through intimidation, through force, through the same tactics his father had used. Giuliano della Rovere had to choose which door to use. Door 1, the Gilded Gate. He could announce his candidacy publicly, campaign openly, remind everyone of his credentials and his family's prominence. Door 2, the Hidden Passage. He could negotiate secretly with individual cardinals, building a coalition through private deals and confidential promises. Door 3, the Iron Fortress. He could position himself as the inevitable candidate through sheer reputation, make it politically impossible to select anyone else. Door 4, the Open Archway. He could appear completely non-threatening, acceptable to all factions, someone who wanted the position so little that everyone felt comfortable supporting him. Giuliano chose door 1. He announced his candidacy immediately. He campaigned in public. He gave speeches. He reminded everyone that he was Cardinal della Rovere, nephew of Pope Sixtus IV, the obvious choice for papal succession. And he lost. The cardinals elected Pope Pius III instead, a compromise candidate who seemed less threatening. But Pius III died after only 26 days in office. The papacy was vacant again. This time, Giuliano chose door 2. He negotiated with Cesare Borgia privately. He promised Cesare continued military command in exchange for Borgia's support among the Spanish cardinals. He made secret deals with multiple factions simultaneously. He never announced his candidacy publicly until the votes were already secured. And he won. Giuliano della Rovere became Pope Julius II in 1503. He ruled for 10 years. He commissioned Michelangelo to paint the Sistine Chapel ceiling. He expanded papal territories through military conquest. He became one of the most powerful popes in history, all because he learned which door to use. The first time, the Gilded Gate, made him a target. Everyone could see him coming. Every rival mobilized against him. The second time, the hidden passage, made him inevitable. By the time anyone realized he was the candidate, the election was already over. Machiavelli documented this in his diplomatic dispatches. He watched Giuliano's strategy unfold in real time, and he understood what most political observers missed. Your entrance strategy isn't about who you are. It's about how you're perceived when you arrive. Same person, same qualifications, same goal, different door, different outcome. 400 years later, sociologists would call this impression management. Psychologists would call it strategic self-presentation. But Machiavelli understood it as warfare. Choosing the wrong entrance doesn't just slow your progress. It kills your campaign before it begins. Every door has a strength. Every strength creates a vulnerability. And your enemies, whether they realize it consciously or not, will defend against your typical entrance strategy. Unless you know which door you instinctively choose, you're broadcasting your approach to everyone watching. You're making yourself predictable, targetable, defeatable. Let me decode what each door reveals about your power strategy. We'll analyze each entrance, each approach, each strength, each fatal weakness. If you chose door 1, pay attention to the first section. If you chose 2, 3, or 4, watch all of them. Because understanding all 4 entrances means you can identify which door your rivals are using and how to lock it before they get through. Let's begin with the first archetype. Door 1, the Gilded Gate. If you chose the Gilded Gate, you enter power through public recognition. You don't hide your ambitions. You don't use backdoor channels. You don't wait to be invited. You announce yourself. Your instinct when seeking power is visibility, credentials, titles, public achievements, awards, media coverage, anything that makes your arrival undeniable and impressive. This isn't vanity, it's strategy. Because public recognition creates social proof. When everyone knows who you are and what you've accomplished, organizations invite you in rather than making you fight for access. Machiavelli analyzed this entrance strategy in Chapter 6 of The Prince, discussing new princes who acquire power through their own abilities. Those who by valorous ways become princes acquire a principality with difficulty, but they keep it with ease. Translation: the Gilded Gate is hard to walk through initially. You have to build the credentials, earn the recognition, create the reputation. But once you're through, maintaining your position is effortless because everyone already acknowledges your legitimacy. Lorenzo de' Medici, Lorenzo the Magnificent, was a Gilded Gate strategist. When Lorenzo became de facto ruler of Florence in 1469 at age 20, he had no official government position. The Medici family had been bankers, not princes. Lorenzo had no legal authority to rule, but he had something better than authority. He had reputation. Lorenzo was famous throughout Italy as a poet, a patron of the arts, a diplomat, a scholar. He hosted the Platonic Academy. He commissioned works from Botticelli and Leonardo da Vinci. He negotiated peace between Italian city-states. When Florentine citizens needed someone to represent them, they didn't ask, who has the legal right to rule? They asked, who has the capability and reputation to lead effectively? And the answer was obvious. Lorenzo. He walked through the Gilded Gate. Everyone saw him coming. Everyone knew his credentials, and no one objected because his public reputation made his authority inevitable. In modern terms, you're the executive with the Harvard MBA and the published books and the speaking engagements. The consultant whose client list is a who's who of Fortune 500 companies. The entrepreneur whose previous exits made you a recognizable name in the industry. You don't sneak into boardrooms. You get invited because your reputation arrives before you do. Your strength is legitimacy. Gilded Gate strategists don't have to justify their presence. Their credentials justify it automatically. When you speak, people listen, not because of what you're saying, but because of who's saying it. But here's the fatal flaw Machiavelli identified in the Gilded Gate archetype. Public visibility creates public vulnerability. Lorenzo de' Medici survived the Pazzi conspiracy in 1478, but only barely. The conspirators knew exactly where to find him, in the Florence Cathedral during Easter Mass, because Lorenzo's public presence was predictable. You can't hide when everyone knows who you are and where you'll be. The Gilded Gate makes you magnificent, but magnificence makes you a target that everyone can see. Julius Caesar walked through Gilded Gates his entire career. Every military victory was publicly celebrated. Every political achievement was announced to the Roman people. Every honor was displayed openly. And on the Ides of March, the senators knew exactly where to find him. In the theater of Pompey, at the Senate meeting, surrounded by the very public institutions that granted him power. 23 knives. 23 senators who saw him coming because he'd been announcing his arrival for years. If you are a Gilded Gate strategist, your survival depends on building hidden defenses behind your public persona. You must be the leader everyone sees while maintaining intelligence networks no one suspects. You must be famous enough to command attention, but protected enough that fame doesn't make you an easy target. Machiavelli's corrective advice appears in chapter 19. A prince is also respected when he is either a true friend or a downright enemy. That is to say, when, without any reservation, he declares himself in favor of one party against the other. But then critically, nevertheless, a prince ought to be slow to believe and to act. Translation. Be publicly visible, be publicly decisive, but maintain private caution and private intelligence gathering. The Gilded Gate gets you in the room. But once you're in the room, you need to know who's planning to lock the door behind you. If you chose door 1, if you instinctively gravitated toward public recognition, toward visible credentials, toward announcing your arrival, then comment below. I enter through the Gilded Gate. Claim your entrance. Because understanding that you approach power through visibility means you can weaponize recognition instead of dying from exposure. Door 2. The Hidden Passage. If you chose the hidden passage, you enter power through private relationships. You don't announce yourself. You don't build public credentials. You don't wait to be noticed. You know someone who knows someone. Your instinct when seeking power is connection, networking, insider knowledge. Being the person who gets invited to conversations that aren't on any official agenda. This is the entrance of courtiers, advisors, the people who never hold titles but always influence decisions. Machiavelli understood the hidden passage better than any other strategist because he used it his entire career. In chapter 22 of The Prince, Machiavelli wrote about the importance of choosing good advisors. The first opinion that one forms of a prince's intelligence is by observing the men he has around him. But read carefully. Machiavelli isn't writing advice for princes. He's writing a manual for how to become the man around the prince. That's hidden passage strategy. Position yourself as indispensable not through public achievement, but through private access. Cardinal Richelieu was the supreme master of the hidden passage. When Richelieu became chief minister to King Louis XIII of France in 1624, he held no military command. He wasn't a popular public figure. He didn't have a famous reputation among the French people. But he had access. He was the king's confessor, the king's advisor, the man who controlled which information reached the throne and which information was filtered out. Richelieu never announced major policy decisions publicly. He suggested them privately to Louis XIII. The king would then announce them as his own ideas, and Richelieu would implement them through bureaucratic channels that only he fully understood. For 18 years, Richelieu ran France from behind the throne, not from on top of it, behind it. The hidden passage kept him alive when every major noble family in France wanted him dead. Because attacking Richelieu meant attacking the king's most trusted advisor, which meant attacking the king himself. Richelieu's protection wasn't military, it was relational. He'd made himself structurally necessary to the person who held visible power. In modern terms, you're the executive assistant who controls the CEO's calendar, the board member who has the chairman's private phone number, the consultant who gets brought into strategy sessions before they're announced to the company. You don't need the title. You need the relationship. Your strength is in visibility. Hidden passage strategists can't be targeted publicly because most people don't know they exist. While others are competing for visible positions, you've already influenced the decision by the time it's announced. But here's the fatal flaw Machiavelli identified in the hidden passage archetype. Relationship dependence is single-point failure. Richelieu survived for 18 years. But the moment Louis XIII died in 1643, Richelieu's access died with him. Actually, Richelieu died 5 months before Louis, but his entire power structure collapsed immediately after his death because it was entirely dependent on one relationship. All his influence, all his policies, all his hidden networks, gone. Because he'd never built institutional legitimacy or public authority, he'd only built private access. Thomas Cromwell made the same mistake in England. Cromwell was King Henry VIII's chief minister for a decade. He engineered Henry's divorce from Catherine of Aragon. He dissolved the monasteries. He restructured the English government, all through the hidden passage, all through private access to Henry. But in 1540, Henry turned against him. And within weeks, Cromwell was arrested, tried, and executed. Why? Because hidden passage strategists have no defense when the relationship ends, no public support to rally, no institutional position to fall back on. No independent power base, just a locked door where the passage used to be. If you are a hidden passage strategist, your survival depends on diversifying your relationships. You cannot depend on one access point. You must build multiple relationships with multiple power holders. so that when one door closes, three others remain open. The most dangerous hidden passage players aren't the ones who serve one master perfectly. They're the ones who serve several masters adequately, maintaining access to multiple competing power centers simultaneously. Machiavelli himself tried to do this in Florence. He served the Republican government. Then he tried to serve the Medici after they returned. Then he tried to maintain relationships with both papal and imperial factions. It didn't work perfectly for him, but it kept him alive when single relationship courtiers were being purged. The hidden passage is powerful, but never walk through a passage that only has one exit. If you chose door 2, if you instinctively gravitated toward private relationships, toward insider access, toward knowing the right people, then comment below. I enter through the hidden passage. Claim your entrance. Because understanding that you approach power through connections means you can build networks instead of becoming dependent on individuals. Door 3. The Iron Fortress. If you chose the Iron Fortress, you enter power through demonstrated capability. You don't announce yourself. You don't use relationships. You don't campaign. You build. Your instinct when seeking power is competence. Results. Achievements so undeniable that organizations come to you instead of you going to them. This is the entrance of technical experts, military commanders, anyone who understands that reputation built on actual capability is more sustainable than reputation built on marketing. Machiavelli analyzed Iron Fortress strategy in Chapter 14 of The Prince. A prince ought to have no other aim or thought, nor select anything else for his study than war and its orders and discipline. For this is the sole art that belongs to him who rules. Machiavelli isn't being literal. He's saying, master your craft so completely that your competence becomes your authority. When you can do what others cannot, they must come to you. They have no choice. Michelangelo was an Iron Fortress strategist. When Pope Julius II wanted the Sistine Chapel ceiling painted in 1508, he didn't hold auditions. He didn't review portfolios from multiple artists. He didn't ask for proposals. He summoned Michelangelo. Why? Because Michelangelo had already demonstrated capability so extreme that he had no peers. The Pietà, the David, the Moses. Work so technically perfect that arguing about Michelangelo's qualifications was absurd. Michelangelo didn't campaign for commissions. He didn't network with patrons. He didn't build public relationships with wealthy families. He locked himself in his studio and produced work that made him inevitable. The Iron Fortress strategy. Build something so undeniably excellent that power has to come through your door. In modern terms, you're the engineer whose code is so clean that companies restructure teams around you. The surgeon whose success rate is so high that hospitals recruit you without interviews. The researcher whose publications are so groundbreaking that universities create positions specifically for you. You don't sell yourself. Your work sells you. Your strength is immunity to politics. Iron Fortress strategists don't get destroyed by gossip or internal rivalries because their competence is objective. Results don't lie. Capability doesn't need spin. While others are networking and campaigning, you're building the fortress that makes you unreachable except on your own terms. But here's the fatal flaw Machiavelli identified in the Iron Fortress archetype. Competence without political awareness is fragile power. Michelangelo survived because he had the rare combination of supreme technical skill and enough political intelligence to navigate papal and Medici politics. But most Iron Fortress strategists lack that combination. Girolamo Savonarola was an Iron Fortress preacher in Florence during the 1490s. His sermons were so powerful so intellectually rigorous, so morally compelling that he effectively ruled Florence for 4 years without holding any official position. His competence as a speaker was undeniable. Thousands attended his sermons. Political decisions were made based on his theological interpretations. But Savonarola had no political defenses. He built only the fortress of his preaching. No allies. No hidden networks. No institutional protection. When Pope Alexander VI excommunicated him in 1497, Savonarola had no counter-strategy. He could only preach, and preaching couldn't save him. In 1498, he was arrested, tortured, hanged, and burned in the Piazza della Signoria. His competence was never questioned. His sermons remained powerful until his final words. But competence without political protection equals execution. If you are an iron fortress strategist, your survival depends on building political alliances while maintaining technical excellence. You cannot ignore politics and hope your competence protects you. It won't. You must be the expert everyone needs while also being the expert who understands how power actually flows through organizations. Machiavelli's corrective advice appears in chapter 15. It is necessary for a prince wishing to hold his own to know how to do wrong and to make use of it or not according to necessity. Translation: master your craft, build your fortress, but also learn to navigate the political realities that surround technical excellence. The most dangerous iron fortress strategists are the ones who combine supreme competence with strategic political awareness. They don't just build fortresses, they build fortresses with hidden gates that only they control. If you chose door 3, if you instinctively gravitated toward building capability, toward demonstrating competence, toward making yourself necessary through results, then comment below. I enter through the iron fortress. Claim your entrance. Because understanding that you approach power through competence means you can add political defenses before your expertise becomes a target. Door 4. The Open Archway. If you chose the Open Archway, you enter power through perceived harmlessness. You don't announce yourself. You don't build relationships explicitly. You don't demonstrate overwhelming capability. You appear completely non-threatening. Your instinct when seeking power is adaptation, flexibility, being the person who fits into any room, agrees with any faction, threatens no one's position. This is the entrance of diplomats, mediators, those who understand that the most dangerous players are the ones no one sees as dangerous. Machiavelli documented open archway strategy throughout The Prince, but his clearest statement appears in chapter 18. A prince, therefore, being compelled knowingly to adopt the beast, ought to choose the fox and the lion, because the lion cannot defend himself against snares, and the fox cannot defend himself against wolves. Therefore, it is necessary to be a fox to discover the snares, and a lion to terrify the wolves. The open archway is fox strategy. You don't fight wolves directly. You walk between them without triggering their predatory instincts. Niccolò Machiavelli himself was an open archway strategist throughout his career. When Machiavelli served as second chancellor of Florence, he was a diplomat. Not a general, not a political leader, not a wealthy patron. He was the man Florence sent to negotiate with more powerful states because he appeared completely harmless. France didn't see him as a threat. The Holy Roman Empire didn't fear him. Pope Julius II didn't need to guard against him. Machiavelli had no army, no wealth, no hereditary power. So he could walk into any court, observe everything, and leave without anyone feeling threatened by his presence. This gave him access that powerful figures never achieved. He witnessed strategy sessions, He observed private conversations. He learned how emperors and popes actually made decisions, all because he appeared to want nothing for himself. The open archway isn't weakness, it's strategic positioning. You sacrifice visible status to gain invisible access. Cosimo de' Medici perfected this strategy in the 15th century. Cosimo never called himself ruler of Florence. He never wore a crown. He never took an official government position beyond occasional terms on the Signoria. He was just a banker, just a private citizen, just someone who happened to be very wealthy and very generous with loans to powerful people. The open archway allowed Cosimo to control Florence for 30 years without ever being officially targeted as a dictator. Because how do you attack someone who claims to have no power? When rival families tried to exile him in 1433, they succeeded for only 1 year. Because removing Cosimo revealed that he'd been the structural foundation of Florentine politics. Without him, the government collapsed, and the same families who exiled him begged him to return. The open archway. No title, no announcement, no obvious authority, just access to every room and influence over every decision. In modern terms, you're the project manager who never takes credit but somehow shapes every deliverable. The board member who asks questions instead of making statements, but whose questions determine which proposals get approved. The consultant who appears to have no agenda but whose observations reshape entire strategies. You don't lead visibly. You lead invisibly. Your strength is in vulnerability. Open archway strategists rarely get targeted because targeting them seems pointless. They hold no official power. They threaten no one's position. By the time people realize how much influence you have, it's already too late to remove you without destabilizing the entire system. But here's the fatal flaw Machiavelli identified in the open archway archetype. Perceived harmlessness eventually becomes actual powerlessness. If you never claim authority, you can never defend your position when someone decides to take it. Machiavelli himself learned this in 1512. When the Medici family returned to Florence and dissolved the Republican government, Machiavelli, who had served as a diplomat for 14 years, was dismissed immediately. Why? Because he'd never built visible authority. He'd never positioned himself as indispensable. He'd been the perfect diplomat, appearing to serve whoever was in power, and the moment power changed hands, he was disposable. The open archway gave him access, but it gave him no defense when that access was revoked. Pope Leo II's Giovanni de' Medici was the opposite lesson. Leo had been a cardinal who appeared politically harmless. When elected pope in 1513, he famously said, "God has given us the papacy, let us enjoy it." He appeared non-threatening, pleasure-loving, more interested in art than politics. This was the open archway strategy, and it protected him from the political conspiracies that had destroyed more aggressive popes. But it also meant that when the Protestant Reformation began challenging papal authority, Leo had no credibility to fight back. His perceived harmlessness had become actual political impotence. If you are an open archway strategist, your survival depends on knowing when to close the archway and claim territory. You cannot remain adaptable forever. Eventually, you must commit to a position, a relationship, a goal, something that defines you as more than just the person who fits in everywhere. The most dangerous open archway players are the ones who appear harmless for years, and then suddenly reveal that they've been building institutional control the entire time. The archway closes, the fortress appears, and everyone realizes too late that the person they ignored was the most dangerous player in the room. If you chose door 4, If you instinctively gravitated toward appearing non-threatening, toward fitting in everywhere, toward never claiming visible authority, then comment below. I enter through the open archway. Claim your entrance. Because understanding that you approach power through perceived harmlessness means you can weaponize invisibility before it becomes irrelevance. The door counter cycle. You now know your Machiavellian entrance, the Gilded Gate, the hidden passage, the iron fortress, the open archway. But here's what Machiavelli never wrote explicitly, because doing so would expose the system itself. Every entrance has a blocking strategy. The Gilded Gate is blocked by public scandal. Destroy the reputation, and the door closes. The hidden passage is blocked by exposing the relationship. Reveal the private connection, and it becomes public vulnerability. The iron fortress is blocked by political isolation. Competence without allies equals imprisonment in your own fortress. The open archway is blocked by forced commitment. Demand they choose a side, and their flexibility becomes weakness. This is the strategic cycle that governs access to power. Why did Lorenzo de' Medici survive the Pazzi conspiracy? Because he was a Gilded Gate strategist who built hidden passages. His public reputation attracted allies, but his private relationships protected him when public support wavered. Why did Cardinal Richelieu rule France for 18 years? Because he was a hidden passage strategist who built institutional fortresses. His relationship with Louis X gave him access, but his bureaucratic control made him structurally necessary beyond that single relationship. Why did Michelangelo maintain power across multiple papal reigns? Because he was an iron fortress strategist who understood open archway positioning. His competence was undeniable, but he appeared politically harmless enough that each new pope kept him employed. Why did Cosimo de' Medici die peacefully after 30 years of controlling Florence? Because he was an open archway strategist who occasionally demonstrated Gilded Gate authority. He appeared harmless most of the time, but he revealed his power decisively when threatened, then returned to apparent harmlessness. Understanding your entrance is essential. Understanding how to block your entrance and how enemies will try to block it is survival. If you enter through the Gilded Gate, your power is public recognition. Your vulnerability is public scandal. Your defense, build private relationships that remain strong when public reputation is attacked. If you enter through the hidden passage, your power is private access. Your vulnerability is exposed relationships. Your defense, diversify your connections. Never depend on a single access point. If you enter through the iron fortress, your power is undeniable competence. Your vulnerability is political isolation. Your defense, build alliances with those who have political power you lack. If you enter through the open archway, your power is perceived harmlessness. Your vulnerability is forced commitment. Your defense, maintain the appearance of flexibility while secretly building institutional control. Machiavelli spent his entire career analyzing these entrance strategies. He watched Gilded Gate leaders destroyed by scandal. He documented hidden passage advisors executed when relationships ended. He analyzed iron fortress commanders defeated by political coalitions. He studied open archway diplomats dismissed as irrelevant. Every entrance can be blocked. Every door can be locked. The question is, do you know which door you're trying to walk through, and who's standing on the other side with the key? The final challenge. Comment your entrance one more time. I enter through the Gilded Gate. I enter through the hidden passage. I enter through the iron fortress. I enter through the open archway. Claim your entrance. Because this isn't a personality quiz. This is an access diagnostic. Machiavelli wrote The Prince to teach rulers how to acquire and maintain power in a world where every entrance is guarded. I'm decoding his door system to teach you how to walk through locked doors while others are still knocking. Like this video if you loved it and subscribe to this channel. Because in the next video, I'm revealing the master strategy Machiavelli used personally. How to use all 4 entrances sequentially without losing credibility. The Gilded Gate to Hidden Passage transition that built empires. The Iron Fortress to Open Archway shift that made targets invulnerable. The Fluid Entrance mastery that let Machiavelli survive Republican Florence, Medici Florence, and Papal Rome, despite serving all 3 regimes. Machiavelli didn't just study doors, he became the locksmith. And in the next video, I'll show you how to pick every lock in the palace. Until then, study your entrance, identify who's blocking your door, and remember, in the game of power, the entrance you choose determines whether you walk into the throne room or die in the corridor. The first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him. Choose your entrance carefully, because once you're inside, everyone will remember how you got there. I'll see you in the next revelation.